Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, and welcome to my New Year's Eve special for my Sims 4 wishlist. I have done this for the past several years, but you may have already realized I'm doing things differently this year because normally I do my review of the current year and my wishlist for next year in the same video, but this year was really eventful, and I was already thinking about dividing the two into two separate videos, so I felt like this was the best time to start doing that. So if you're interested in my in-depth review of this past year of Sims 4 content, feel free to watch yesterday's video. But transitioning between yesterday's topic and today's, my wish list. Some things were crossed off this year, from major wishes like improved babies, paintable ceilings, and a family-themed expansion pack, to smaller wishes like waffles, lingerie, and swimsuit kits, and being able to filter kits individually. That said, many of the same things I mentioned in last year's New Year's Eve special are still things that I'm hoping for in 2024. The biggest for me is obviously cars. I've done this song and dance for many years now. Cars would bring plenty to the game, even without Sims 3's open worlds. Especially since that already happened in The Sims 2, and they were more interactive than Sims 3's cars. It was even a woohoo spot, and I know many of you love getting those. Though that's not to say that The Sims 3's cars didn't bring anything to the table. Maybe they could bring back the driving lessons feature from Generations, where teenagers could learn how to drive, and just expand upon that more, like actually having to take a driver's test, but that would have to be a rabbit hole in The Sims 4 with how the worlds work. But it still would be nice to have that progression of teens really like learning how to drive, especially since this year we did have the ability for kids to learn how to ride bikes and growing together. Ideally, I'd have a few cars in a free updates like your basic sedan, pickup truck, SUV, caravan, and then packs could have some other types of vehicles. They could even include some other vehicles like motorcycles and motorized scooters. Cars would also tie in very nicely to what is now my most wanted expansion pack, Hobbies. Much like what we had with The Sims 2 Free Time, a hobby system that ties many of the game's activities together, having categories like cuisine, gaming, tinkering, science, fitness, so having a fixer-upper car could go under a tinkering hobby. But I feel that we do need an expansion pack that focuses primarily on gameplay objects, and not like really elaborate activities like riding on horseback, but just a lot of everyday things. We have had several gameplay objects spread out across the various expansion packs, like for rent having hopscotch and marbles, the pressure cooker and the kettle, or like get together having the dance floor and the don't wake the llama table, or city living having karaoke. I think there's a ton of potential in an expansion pack that not only ties these existing ones together, but also makes it the focus instead of only having 2 or 3 new things. Maybe they could also bring back the interest system from the first couple of Sims games, or expand upon the existing likes and dislikes system, since we don't really have broad topics like the ones here, like paranormal, or weather, or health, or sci-fi. Actually, one thing they should do for sure is add food preferences. That can go alongside a Hobbies expansion pack. It would be, I think, more of a challenge to organize though in terms of selection, because there's so many recipes in the game now, especially if you have all the packs. It could be a bit of a headache to find the ones that you want to select for your sim, unless they do manage to make it more organized underneath certain categories, like having Italian cuisine, Middle Eastern cuisine, Filipino cuisine, like that. And then when you click on one of those categories, you'd have the individual recipes within that. Another expansion pack I'd really love to see is bands. This was actually a previous My Sims 4 wishlist episode, and I initially proposed it as a game pack, but I'm more open to it being a full expansion pack if it does include a decent amount of instruments, and most importantly, having vocalists, because Sims 3 bands did not have vocalists. They were just a separate career in a different pack entirely. Also, realistically speaking, they probably would make bands an expansion pack, especially after they dedicated an expansion pack to horses. I'd love to do more than just live gigs with bands though, because I think it would be really fun if we could have our bands go into the recording booth and just record entire albums and potentially do photo shoots for merch like posters and t-shirts, just to really add that personal touch and make bands feel different from the other if you have multiple in your save file. Also, we're long overdue for more musical instruments, because not counting the upright pianos, which are pretty much the same as the pianos we've had since the base game launched, we haven't had a brand new instrument since the pipe organ from Vampires, and that came out in 2017. I almost forgot the year. It was that long ago. So we don't even have a drum kit like this one. That's so bizarre. Another idea that's high up on my wish list now is hotels. And it's to the point where I'm even reserving certain lots in some worlds in hopes of us getting a hotels pack sometime soon. And like bands, I originally thought of it as a game pack thing, but again, maybe this is another one that they can blow up into an expansion pack. That just seems to be something they're doing now, especially with For Rent. They made that an expansion pack with just improved apartments over city living and eco lifestyle. So I guess it could have like a travel and tourism sort of angle, even though we kind of have that already with Snowy Escape. I think For Rent has drastically increased the chances of us getting hotels. I don't know if it'll be in 2024 specifically. I think they'll wait until at least a couple years later. But that's combined with the fact that we can vacation in any residential world for a couple of years now. Like, it'd be such a missed opportunity if they never gave us hotels. And not just hotels, it would be nice to have things like bed and breakfast. So then you can operate a travel destination as a business from your own home, kind of like being a landlord, but still a little bit different because they're guests that are coming and leaving every couple of days or so, or just one night, instead of them being more permanent residents. That would also be a really good opportunity to expand on pools. They really need an update. So then we could finally have pools with rounded edges and being able to have just like the classic diving board from the previous games, having the pool slide, perhaps even a couple of games like Marco Polo or water-based volleyball, things like that. Back in August, I did a whole episode dedicated to pool activities that I'd like to see, so feel free to check that out. Honestly, they could dedicate a whole game pack to pool activities. I mean, I don't know if that's something I want, if that would make sense to be a full game pack, but maybe by today's standards it would, and it could actually be really fun if they pull it off. One of the biggest surprises in 2023 was the return of stuff packs after an almost 3-year absence, and I'm having a hard time thinking of what stuff packs I would like to see, except for some reused concepts from previous community stuff pack votes. And one of those would be arcade stuff, because it would be nice to get more things for the arcade, and sure, that could fit into a Hobbies expansion pack, but there's literally so many hobbies in the world that it's impossible to fit them into one expansion pack. So that is one sort of concept I could imagine them still doing. After opening The Sims 2 to get some new footage of hobby-related activities, I just stumbled upon the pinball machine in this single-player arcade cabinet, and it makes me want this idea even more. Another community stuff pack vote idea I would really love to see is being a freelance reaper. Basically, the Grim Reaper would be your boss, and you would go around reaping souls. Well, at least the ones that you've opted into the system, so you don't end up reaping the souls of your favorite Sims. But then I think this is actually an idea I would love to see as a game pack. I think it just has a lot more potential that way, because then you could actually see where the Grim Reaper lives in a new world, kind of like the Magic Realm, but hopefully more interesting and overall intriguing. and perhaps be able to actually like live there and have it be as a normal world, but perhaps with the twist of having to earn a certain amount of favor with the Grim Reaper before you can move in. With the whole occult thing, I would love to see an occult next year, but I don't really care much for fairies. Like, yeah, they could bring a really cute aesthetic. That's probably the direction they would go, since that's what happened with werewolves, instead of making them look really terrifying. But I think I would prefer to see something new. Some kind of occult that we haven't been able to play as in the entire Sims franchise. Because mostly I'm just wanting old ideas from previous games. I'm not afraid to admit that. But yeah, in terms of occults, it would be really nice to have something new, because we haven't. All the occults that we've had in The Sims 4 so far are just previous concepts reused. But hey, you know what other previous concept that I'd love to see reused in NPC form? Burglars. I can't believe it's taken this long. I mean, even with For Rent, we can kind of be the burglar now if you use the break-in feature and your sim happens to have the kleptomaniac trait, but still, it does not replace that iconic NPC for me and having that element of realism and danger. One last thing I want to bring up, which is something I'd like to see in a free update, is the return of collection folders. We had these in The Sims 2 and The Sims 3, and I think they're a great system for organizing the stuff that we use most. And we have a lot of stuff in The Sims 4 now. About to turn 10 years old, so I think we are due for some kind of like organization update. But an improvement I would like to see with this is to not have it be limited to build by. I want to see this in Create a Sim as well. It'd also be a good idea to have favorites in Build By and Create a Sim, because we technically already have that for organizing our Sims inventories, so that'd be great if that could end up in other aspects of the game. It could work as a way of quickly accessing objects that you use a lot but doesn't exactly fit into any of the collections that you have. But I'm gonna wrap up this New Year's Eve special here, so this isn't literally everything that I still want to see in The Sims 4, because that would be a way longer video and it's difficult to think of every single thing I want to think of having in the game at the same time, so that is just like the main stuff. But feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What is your wish list for next year? And be sure to subscribe if you'd like to keep up with my latest gaming content. I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!